Hello and welcome to Our Time. In this episode of Our Time, we meet a man who became a costume maker when he discovered an old Singer treadle sewing machine. You remember those? And he was curious as to how it operated. So he refurbished it when he was 15 years old and discovered how to make clothing in the process. At high school, it was recognised he had a costume design ability, which led to actually being headhunted by Crawford Productions, one of the early TV companies. And now he's still making costumes and a lot more. Hello, Davis Browne.
Hello.
It's great you could be on the program.
Thank you for having me.
What I love about your story is that we just said about finding an old Singer. Where was the Singer sewing machine?
It was in the shed and it was covered in dust, and I was mostly interested in the timber and the wrought iron steel, making it all look pretty.
The legs and
then I
treadle.
flipped it up and there was a machine inside, and I was...
Oh, that's right. They used to tip upside down.
Yeah, so
to a
there was an
tabletop.
actual machine inside
My mum
it.
had one of those.
And then I was very confused about how the bobbin thread, like how you can poke a thread through something and back out and still it stays in there. So I had to figure that out. And once I figured that out, I started sewing.
And was that just sort of by accident when you figured that out, you put in a bit of material to see what happened, or?
I guess so, yeah. I had a friend who made board shorts. I made a pair of shorts the wrong way up. They looked like sort of bucket legs. She showed me how, and I got it wrong. But yeah, and then quickly...
And was that the first thing you made on the machine?
Yeah.
How extraordinary.
And then the second thing was an Obelix costume, because I wasn't satisfied with board shorts. So,
So how did the teachers at school recognise you had this ability? You didn't take the machine to school, obviously.
no, but we, I don't know, like we had a very, very busy drama. The drama kids ruled the school.
This was in Melbourne, wasn't it?
Yeah, at a place called Hyatt High School. And the drama program was just everything. So if you said you wanted to do something, you just went and did it, and really it was the thing. So you had rights
That's
to do
really
everything.
wonderful that encouragement was there, because in a way you can't be creative unless you're given the opportunity to just, give it a go.
I mean, you're dealing with kids, but my teachers were like, oh, well, you say you're going to do it, here you go, go and do it all.
So this is a poster from... This is the show that you first designed, is that right?
So that was these costumes here.
I'll show those in a tick. But this was the show.
I think I directed that and designed it.
Oh, as well?
I think so.
Oh, glutton for punishment.
I was a terrible director and an even worse actor.
You got to start somewhere, though, is the truth. I'll just be careful with that.
And as long as you stop somewhere too.
Oh, well, I don't know about that. I haven't. Okay, so these are some of the...
Yeah, those costumes. I did the whole set for that. And then the following year did the Crucible, and the woman who was the designer for the Flying Doctors at Crawford's came and borrowed the costumes from our school.
So this mask over on this side here, that was part of...
Yeah, that was part of that show, and that's actually me wearing it.
Oh, okay.
I dropped
Afraid
out
to
of the
show
roof.
your face.
Better if I didn't, yeah, I think.
Davis, no. So what I find interesting about this is you're a high school student, and a major television production company says, we want to borrow your costumes, and hey, this guy is terrific, we need to pull him into our wardrobe department.
Yeah, when they found out that they were all made by a student, I think she just went, well, we've got the right job for him.
So drop a few of the shows you worked on.
Flying Doctors, no, it's not so good. Like Mission Impossible was somewhere around at the time. Cluedo, something called The Honeymooners with... Honeymooners? Yeah, something like that. But
Honeymooners was the American comedy show.
This was a failed pilot with... oh my God, she was on Blue Heelers for 50 years.
Okay. Google it.
Yeah, we'll have to Google it. She's blonde, blue-eyed.
Okay.
Yes.
What were you actually doing for that? Collating
Oh, and
regular
halfway
clothing?
across the galaxy and turn left, and that's what I enjoyed doing, which was a kids' show with lots of space costumes, and I had to break everything down. So I just sat in the back car park, beating everything against poles for most of the day, and throwing dust on things. And they threw anything that was creative to me, because television wardrobe is a lot of buying, like doubles of jeans and
because
shirts
they're regular
and
clothes usually.
And so when this halfway across the galaxy and turn left came up, it was like all quite imaginative stuff, and they were like, and so I really dug into that.
Well,
completely.
Crawford's eventually sort of wound up, didn't they?
It did.
Unfortunately, because they were the main production company in this country.
Yeah, and I didn't know what to do because I hadn't thought. I was 16 or 17 when I went there, and 19 when it closed, and I hadn't made any connections at all. And everybody else was like, oh, I'm going on to this show or that show. It's like, I've been standing in the car park beating things against posts.
So you went to America?
I did. I went to America. I went to Canada and the UK, and for a year away.
Did that teach you there's a big wide world out there?
Oh, it certainly did, yes.
So you came back to Australia?
To get into the Victorian College of the Arts, yeah.
And how many times did it take you to do that?
No, just the once.
You just got in?
That book was put together, that kitschy book was put together to convince them to let me in. Yes.
Now, you've got a different name here,
That's
Davis.
right, yes. So that's my real name. And I went to register my business. As part of going to VCA, they say you've got to get an ABN and a business name. Mm-hmm. And I went to register it, and it was already taken. I couldn't have my own name. And so I came up with what is my business name. I didn't mean for anybody to call me that, but when I moved to Adelaide, people thought it was my name, and they started calling me it, especially one girl at a party who was like, you know what I mean, Davis? Whenever I see you, Davis, I think Davis. It's like, and you just can't ever correct a person.
No, when you get somebody's name in your head.
Yeah.
Because I've always thought of you as David, not Davis.
Well, it's any combination of 4 things.
I'm always going to call you AU.
Thank you.
Now, this poster...
Yes. So, yes. I came back to Adelaide to work for the Adelaide Festival as a production and program manager. And in 2009, I realised I was sort of done with all of that. I'd done that program managing for 10 years.
Well, we're going to show some of your costumes, but this other side of you starts to appear.
Yes, well, it was the main side of me. For 10 years, I did program and production management for festivals, and I loved it.
So hang on, before you go any further, just explain what a program manager actually does. You're not standing at the front selling programs, are you?
No. A program manager is meant to juggle all of the impacts of inviting companies to perform at your festival. So if you're going to invite that show, they're going to cost $30,000 and need 6 hotel rooms. And eventually the whole cost will be this, and they'll need that many staff. And so program manager looks after all of those details.
But they're complex, like you just said, or they'll need 6 hotel rooms, or they'll need transport, or they'll need, rushes from the river for the set, or they'll need...
Correct, all of that.
Yeah.
Or sound recorded, or any number of things can need to happen. Adelaide Festival has many program executives to handle their situation, and one head honcho. And I worked at 10 Days on the Island in Tasmania, and they only had one program manager. It was me and the artistic director for a year and a half.
Oh, so you were busy.
Yeah, very busy. And
but it's difficult because you've got to really see every possibility that will be needed, don't you?
Yeah, and so events are keeping all of the balls in the air until it's time for them to fall, and then they've got to fall in that order.
The way you plan.
And you just keep everything sort of light and aloof.
And nobody
until then.
knows what you're doing in the background.
No. And
The
then
public don't know that somebody's set all this up.
No, that's right. And I think that's the nice thing about public events. People really get behind them, and communities love the festival that they've got or whatever. And they don't really, it's all a bit of magic to them how it all happens. And
Well, that's very true. But really, you only see the final product. You've really no idea what went into making that final product or got it there into that venue or into that place.
No. And I think it's a wonderful part. So that high school brought me over to Adelaide in 1989 to come to the Come Out Festival, and then again in 1990 to come to the Adelaide Festival. And I made it a goal of mine to work for the Adelaide Festival.
Well, there's so much more to this man, and we'll be back shortly to tell you about that.
Mm-hmm.
Davis Browne is our guest, and we're talking about all things management, designing and costuming. So, Davis, what I find fascinating is all the things you've done, but let's talk about how does a costume begin? Because that's what you've more or less done. Now, we've got some examples of some of your sketches. Is that how you would normally start?
Not anymore. I think.
But back when you're doing this, how long?
When you're studying, it all has to happen from
But
sketches.
see, you've got all the prices there.
Yes, budgeting and all of that, production.
So you were already
costumes.
thinking past making the costumes.
Yes.
To exactly what things would cost. I don't know about the shoes that Sketch is wearing, and she's missing some hands there.
Yes, she is missing hands.
I suppose
hands
you
are
didn't
expensive.
have to provide those, did you?
No, well, we couldn't find them in the end, so she had to go without.
Oh, okay. Here's a bit of colour.
Yes. So sketching doesn't happen so much anymore. Now it's all in the rehearsal room, and I like to bring things into
That's
the
a
rehearsal
lady
room.
in grey in The Fly.
She is the Fly from, I think it's a Bertolt Brecht show, and that's probably one of her counterparts, a gangster. Rough.
These things really were for obviously this isn't a gangster. Looks a bit more like a showgirl.
I think I've got the coloured one of that.
Oh, okay. We'll see those in a minute. Yeah.
No, so I did event work as well, and a bit of circus stuff. I fell into a lot of dance, so I don't know what happened. But
well, they're interesting costumes to make because they've got to have the freedom of movement.
They've got to, yes. So dance costumes are very pretty things that you give to ravaging beasts that go and then destroy them and then hand you back 2 little bits of tissue.
I love that.
And you go, thank you so much.
Well, let's have a look at some of them because these are.
Oh yeah. That's burlesque, that one.
That's burlesque, yes. There's lots of fluff there, I would say.
Yes, lots of fluff. And less fluff there, and less fluff every minute.
Mm-hmm. Because it all comes off.
It all comes off.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very good friend of mine, Holly. And then this is Beginning of Nature, which is Gary Stewart's Australian Dance Theatre, and won a Helpman Award for Best Dance Production that year.
Right.
I loved working on that.
They're great shots too.
They were really good shots by Chris Hertzfeld.
Pity you couldn't afford shoes for the poor dancers. Just
well,
wear their feet out.
Yes, but they've got hands.
Oh, right. It's always useful, yes.
Yes. And then this one is an independent artist who works in Adelaide, Alexandra Knox, and she made a show called Core, which was just a fringe production, maybe 2014, but highly imaginative stuff. I really enjoyed working on that with Alex. Oh, that's my friend Bridget. And that's meant to be in that book down there. That's part of my VCA folio.
Oh, right. That does just show the diversity of work that you've done.
Yeah, House of Bernarda Alba, sort of 10 women on stage, all very dour situation. This is Lena Limosani's One's Wicked Ways, which was a short work that she did with ADT dancers in 2017, I'd say.
Well, again,
2016.
these are imaginative creations in an imaginative creation of dance.
Yes, and again, like, so that they're still intact is the main deal, because they really thrash their costumes.
Well, you have to, yes, and you have to understand how to make costumes that are like that, that are sewn more than once and so on.
It is.
I noticed in your resume that you're also an expert in stretch fabrics.
Yes, I love stretch
and
fabrics.
That's quite difficult, I understand.
Yeah, I think the movement for dance, I don't know, it's all a puzzle. I think dance is interesting because you can go anywhere with it. But obviously, very rarely there are words. So it's all sort of a highly imaginative thing. There's a choreographer who has part of the idea, and then you're waiting to go, what is coming from what I'm watching in the rehearsal room, to be able to work out what idea needs to be sort of bolstered and sort of carried through to the end.
It's building on the choreography.
It is all from the choreography,
yes,
and then you watch it, and then you see something, and you go, oh, I think this is about constraint. And so you bring in something that's going to constrain or confine, and then you see if that is going to work, and then you're dealing with tapes, elastic, Velcro pins, and a lot of rubbish for a lot of time, and then you go off and make the beautiful thing, bring it back, and then it gets delivered to you as a rag at the end.
That's why there's not many of those costumes around anywhere.
No, well, I think that's one of the things that I did really like working at Crawford's. They had a massive wardrobe of old costumes, and I love looking at the things like bald front heads with a wig on top that you go, oh, up close, that is really dreadful. But of course, from
the one I'm
stage,
wearing now.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's not so dreadful. I love that stuff where you just go, okay, so it's actually, costumes are so resilient. They're
if they're
stiff,
well made.
Yeah. And yet from a distance they look every bit they're meant to look.
Well, this is the other part of your life now with making wedding dresses.
Yes. So I think I'm a maker before a designer, and so part of what happened for me in 2010 when I was working for the Adelaide Festival and decided I got much more joy out of seeing people enjoy the things that I've made.
Well, there's some beautiful shots here of some of the wedding dresses that you've made.
Yes. So I made wedding dresses, bespoke wedding dresses for clients for 7 or 8 years, and they'd come to me and they'd have very little vocabulary for saying what they wanted, or they'd present 3 or 4 different pictures and have very little way of talking about.
Did this lady ask for half her dress on the floor?
Yeah, she needed half her dress on the floor.
Okay. Or something comfortable to wear at the beach?
So I think she wants to look like the sea foam at the back there. See, her dress really does. This was my favourite client, I've got to say, out of all. And she wanted a blue wedding dress. And we started with white lace. I dyed the beads, I dyed everything. And this is a woman who I don't think would have ordinarily felt comfortable having a lot of people look at her on her wedding day. Not self-conscious, but just, it takes a bit to feeling put together, and she loved it.
It's a great shot too, the colouring is.
She's a photographer, so that she's
Did
very
she set up the shot and then quickly run the pose?
I think she relied on friends, but I think she knows exactly what's going on in that moment.
Yeah.
But no, she is somebody who helped me understand that I actually do
Is that you?
That is me.
You could have worn something more than thongs.
I'm usually very late at this point.
You mean with the dress? As long as it's there before they walk down the aisle?
Yes, that's right.
Right. Well, what else do they need it for?
That's right. So thongs is what you get. And plus it's Adelaide, so thongs is what you get.
No, they're quite delightful. I mean, you've had this amazing career, but now you're concentrating more on being the production manager.
So I started to work with Lena Limasani, who has a company, Limasani Projects.
And Lena's been on the show before. We've talked.
Yes. And 2 years ago, when we started working together, I realised that some of what I used to do as a production manager, program manager, could really help her to just push the profile of the work that she does. She's an incredible Adelaide-based choreographer and artist, and her work really deserves to be seen more broadly in Australia and overseas. And so while I'm enjoying designing with her, we also spend every Tuesday and Thursday hammer and tongs trying to make sure that other people in Australia see her shows.
Right.
So I'm really enjoying the balance.
And that is so important because creators create, but they're not usually very good with the publicity or the general promotion or the funding or the whatever.
The trouble is that when you're putting on a show, you are really focused on the stuff that matters, and it's the performers, the cast.
Oh, and the creation.
Putting it together, yeah.
You've got this thing in your head and you've got to get it, and more so, you've got to get somebody else to interpret it for you.
Yeah. So I think we've got a nice little partnership going on.
So the reality of chatting with you is people need to get out and see things that you're involved in, because that will keep you working apart from anything else. But also it's like a doorway into a whole new world of imagination.
Yes, it is. It is. And I think if you're around in 2 years' time to come and see Lena's next show.
I will be. Well, listen,
you're going to have your mind blown.
Okay,
well, very great show.
Not tonight, thanks. But we'll be back in a tick and we'll find out a bit more about Davis. Davis Browne has been our guest on this episode. Davis, of all of the things you've done in your life, and you've done many, many different things, are there still things you want to achieve?
Yes, and I think that I feel like a lot of creative people just naturally bubble along to those things, like never, not content, but the next thing is going to come. If you're a creative person and you make your choices about what interests you next.
But also make the contacts. As you said, when you were at Crawford's, you didn't really have contacts outside of Crawford's.
No.
But you've created a whole lot more with all the festival work you've done.
Yes, and then you just get to a point and you go, how many people do I need to know? No, it's... Everybody. Networking. No, I think...
One of the good things, though, about living in a city that's an arty city, and it's one of the things about Adelaide that's often forgotten in the eastern states, that we have the most art festivals, we have the most people attending these festivals, the Adelaide Festival of Arts, the Fringe, the Cabaret Festival, Cabaret Fringe, there's a whole lot of other smaller festivals going on. A lot of the arts people in somewhere like Adelaide know each other, so once you start feeding with each other, you never know what's going to come out of the woodwork.
No, it's absolutely true, and I've got to say that Adelaide has a special place for me. I think it's a city that is completely overtaken by its festival, supports it, but becomes alive during that time.
Well, just
and it's like no other city.
Yeah, I just hope that it keeps supporting you. David, it's been lovely talking to you. Thank you so much. It's time for us to leave, so until next time on Our Time, keep yourself nice. Till then, bye.